I just want to thank our wonderful sponsor today, the Water Safety Products. And before any further ado, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce our presenters for this afternoon. We have Catherine Barry, who is the Director of Aquatics for Preparedness and Health and Safety Services at the American Red Cross, which is headquarters in Washington, D.C. And we also will have Connie Harvey, who is the Manager of Aquatic Programs at the American Red Cross Preparedness and Health and Safety Department at our national headquarters. Welcome.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you for the lovely group that's come this afternoon. When students participate in the American Red Cross Learn to Swim program, they don't simply learn the basic swimming skills, they also gain knowledge that will help them survive. We've all talked a lot and heard a lot today about survival skills, and we hope to share some of our viewpoint with you as well. We strive to ensure that students have water competency and safety knowledge so that they can enjoy the water safely in many different environments, both aquatic as well as pool, surf, lake, beachfronts, etc. The Red Cross is committed to ensuring that everyone have the opportunity to learn these life skills despite the ability, or in another way to put it, an inability to pay. Red Cross will be sure that we'll be able to teach all students how to swim. The session will define water competency and briefly describe the American Red Cross Learn to Swim program. Connie will take us through that and share some success stories where donor funding is helping to expand the reach of this program in communities across the nation and across the world. So thank you, Connie.
Okay, let's go. I guess I need the clicker, don't I?
You need the clicker, or I could be your assistant.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming, everybody. Let me start by finding out how many are current Red Cross instructors. I thought we might have that kind of a group. So thank you very much for coming. We're going to start by talking about the Red Cross role in drowning prevention through the years. We started off, this is Wilbert E. Longfellow. He is the guy who got it all started with the American Red Cross. Back in 1912, he saw that there was a nationwide epidemic of drowning and said, by golly, we need to make a difference here. And so this is a quote of his, water can be a good friend or a deadly enemy. And he actually undertook a campaign for the waterproofing of America, is what he called it, as he helped to establish the first national life-saving corps, and then also wanted to teach people to swim. So the Red Cross has been in it for a very long time. 1914 is when the actual Learn to Swim program essentially began for us, and so we're actually coming up on 100 years of doing this. We remain very committed to the teaching of, to helping ensure that people are learning about swimming and water safety, lifeguarding, and we're doing it now with we want to make certain that we do everything that we can that is based on science and evidence to make certain that it's not just the way we've always done it, but we want to make certain that we're doing the best that we can for the communities. So we have the Scientific Advisory Council, and it's a scientific council that is made up of all kinds of professionals in the field of preparedness and health and safety services. It used to be called ACFAS, but we started to get into too many areas that we slid the name, we made the name a little bit smaller because we used those acronyms, and it was the first aid, safety, aquatics, preparedness, disaster. I mean, it was like, oh my gosh, we're going to be like too long. So we're now the Scientific Advisory Council. But it does cover all different disciplines that we as the Red Cross do, to include preparedness, community disaster education. But we have an aquatics sub-council. And the names up here are the members of our aquatics sub-council. And you've seen Roy Fielding is here this week. And so I hope many of you will get the chance to meet him if you don't already know him. But we have, these folks are medical doctors, in the education, academia world. So we always look to them to help us ensure that we are staying on track with the science that's out there. We don't do the primary research, but we are doing reviews of existing research and trying to understand how that can apply to our program so that we are staying on the leading edge. So some of the things that we have been involved in that arena are the Lifeguard Standards Coalition. We were a group, one of the 3 sponsoring organizations of that initiative, and that it was the Red Cross, Y of the USA, and USLA, United States Life Saving Association, to take a look at the available science to us to help guide us to ensure that we are doing what we are doing can be based on science where it's available. One thing that it actually did very much was highlight how much is not available. And so as good as the information that came from the Lifeguard Standards Coalition, just as important were identifying areas where there are gaps in research as it relates to lifeguarding in particular, so that we can continue to move our industry forward. A Model Aquatic Health Code, I'm sure that everybody's hearing lots about that this week, and we have we've been participating in the development of that along the way. The Lifeguard Rescue Reporting System. Are you aware of that? Do you guys know of that? Roy actually will be presenting on that at a session at 4 o'clock. I would encourage you to go to that. What that is, just in a sentence or two, is we are working with the University of North Carolina. They actually are the ones who house the survey information. But whenever a lifeguard makes a rescue, no matter how big or small, we're asking them to report through this system so we can find out exactly what's happening out in the field. Are they getting, where were they when they saw it? Did the lifeguard see it, or did somebody bring it to their attention? How far did you have to swim to get to the person, or did you have to swim? How did you reach the person? What were the conditions? Did you have glare? What kind of stand were you sitting in? So the kinds of stuff that we could then take and say, how do we make certain that the programs that we develop are actually matching what's happening in the field, so that that lifeguards do indeed have the skills that they need to be able to prevent and respond to the emergencies that do indeed incur. Some other things that we are working on is establishing a definition of water competency so that we can have a good sense across the industry what that means. And we'll actually speak to that. We've got our pending definition right now that's actually out for review. And then, of course, this group also spends a lot of time representing the American Red Cross in the national media. Of course, we are a go-to source whether it's in response to emergencies that may have happened, of course, the Red River drownings, the media immediately calls us to say, how do you prevent this from happening? So it's, a lot of times it's very topical based on the news of the day, but it can also be in helping to make certain that people have the knowledge and skills to be safe. So many agencies look to the Red Cross for that type of information, and so that's some of how the Scientific Advisory Council helps us. Here are some of the scientific reviews that they have done, and we've got this split up here today with First Aid, CPR, AED, but we only pulled out the ones that have relevance to the aquatics industry as well. So these are things that have guided us in what translates into our training program. But there are many more that have topics that are outside of what would apply to us in aquatics. But then we also have some aquatic-specific statements. And these all have detailed information about the science that is available to us to help guide us in our programs. And you'll see here we have redcross.org Instructors Corner. You can go to that, and you do not actually have to be an instructor to get to this particular content. Up in the top right, there's a tab that says About the Science. You can click on that, and it has all of the scientific advisories that we have done, that have been done, and some things that don't rise to the level of a scientific advisory, but a question and answer, for something that, may be, doesn't need that much of a review. But I would encourage you all to take a look at that. So, as I mentioned, we're looking at establishing we're trying to get to a place that we all have an understanding about water competency means. And so this is the definition that we have currently out there that is actually we're taking to our international colleagues to get their input and on that as well, so we can really start to get a consensus to say, is this what competence in the water means? So here's how it goes. You need to be able to get in the water and totally submerge. So your head's got to go all the way under, and then come back up, and then stay at the surface for a while. Then be able to position yourself and figure out where do I need to go to get out, and then be able to level off and get out, and then actually exit from the water. Now, there are also some caveats with that, and one of them being that, of course, water competency is influenced by the environment that you're in. So, whether we're talking about the water temperature, water depth, whatever, that is going to fluctuate. And then just because you could do it in the pool doesn't mean that you would necessarily be able to do it in the river or in the ocean or at the water park. So for a parent to understand that, well, I took my kids to swimming lessons, why is he having trouble here? It's very important for them to understand that it is not necessarily transferable.
I used the example yesterday for those that were at the session about we were asked at the Olympic trials in Omaha this year, why are there lifeguards guarding the pool of such strong swimmers? Well, lifeguards need to guard the pools, all pools, no matter who's in the pool, because even a strong swimmer can get into trouble, whether it's a heart attack, a cramp, some sort of object falling into the pool on top of them, especially in outdoor pools, a tree limb, a branch. Never swim alone. And I do share one personal story about a good swimmer, an ocean lifeguard, which I was in my youth, and I was surfing at 5 a.m. with another lifeguard in Long Island at a very rough water beach, and he was teaching me some things. I was a beginner surfer, and I was hit by the board and knocked unconscious, and he dragged me out. And I wouldn't be standing here today, all these many years later, had I been swimming or surfing alone. So one of my biggest mantras, having joined the Red Cross, is to think back on that story and think about all the children I did save, and other lifeguards and WSIs and ITs and all of us who teach people how to swim. I was a victim, and had I not been with somebody, again, I would have been that victim. So I was very lucky, and it's something that I hold dear to my heart. When people demonstrate one skill and in one aquatic environment doesn't mean they can survive in all. So even though I could swim in the ocean, I can't swim if I'm unconscious. So I share that story.
Absolutely. Another thing that we are working on, and it's still in its pretty draft stages, so we chose not to put the image up, but we are, how many of you are familiar with cardiac chain of survival? So one of the things that we are working on is a drowning chain of survival. Say, what are those most important steps in order to make certain that the victim doesn't end up as a fatal victim, or with catastrophic injuries. But what we think is so good about this concept is that we're also having a layer of prevention that goes along with it, so that there would be putting equal emphasis on the importance of the prevention as well as the response in order to make certain that somebody doesn't end up as a number. So we're working on that. It would be a very graphic kind of thing that we would be able to help put in, pools and, make it more of a concept that people can really, look at and relate to and understand what are those steps of that, the circle of prevention and the chain of survival. And so that's work actually. What's that? Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And general public awareness as well, so that they understand, so whenever we have the opportunity to be having a conversation, that really graphic image can be very helpful.
We're working on the chain of survival and the chain of prevention, and we're working with the Scientific Advisory Council, not only here in the U.S., but internationally as well, to get, concurrence on our chain. We were hoping to have it here today to show you, but we've had a couple of changes within the past 3 days, actually, by an international body that met to actually honor Dr. Linda Kwan, one of our Scientific Advisory Council members from Seattle in Ireland. So we had some input from some Irish and some Australian folk that, we're not ready because they gave us some terrific input. So as soon as we're confident, we're going to share that all with you.
Yeah.
We will.
So that's the beauty of a consensus kind of process. We definitely want to take their feedback and make it better. Okay, so now we're going to go into, one of the reasons that we were brought here and asked to speak was related to the Step Into Swim Congress, and with trying to make an effort to get our own industry to help fund the ability for people to swim. And so yesterday, Catherine spoke as a part of that Congress, kind of making an appeal to our commercial partners to help make a difference in fund swimming for those who may not be able to afford it. As part of that, they gave us the opportunity to come and talk to you more about the specifics of the American Red Cross program. So I imagine, how many of you teach Red Cross swimming lessons? Oh, okay, so there's actually a few new to the program. Because I was actually afraid that our audience would be mostly folks who do it anyway. But this is good. We want to tell you more about our program. So in our Learn to Swim program, we have 3 different levels: at Parent and Child Aquatics, Preschool Aquatics, and then the levels of Learn to Swim. Our Parent and Child Aquatics is for children that are ages 6 years to about 3 years old. It requires that there be an adult in the water with them.
Connie, I'm sorry, 6 months to 3 years.
Did I say 6 years?
6 years. Yeah,
oh,
it's okay.
No. 6 months to about 3 years old. Yeah. And it does require an adult, a 1-to-1, adult to child. As far as the ratio for instructor to student, because you've got that one-on-one with the parent, and I'm going to put that in quotes because it can be an older sibling, a grandparent, a caregiver. It could be anybody, but we need it to be an adult, and it's 1-to-1. And then, so now the instructor is actually going to be working with the parents, and the parents are working with their own children. 2 levels. There's a level 1 and level 2, and it is definitely progressive. You set the groundwork with the first level. Everybody who comes into it, we do want them to come into the level 1 first, because at that point, again, we are essentially working with the parent at that point, giving them the skills and knowledge to be able to handle their children safely in the water, and building good skill for them to be able to give good support, know when more support is needed, know when to back off of support, and giving them the information about safe behaviors around the water as well. So it's setting a stage in that level 1, and then level 2 builds on that. And as you would imagine, as kind of level 2 is making things go longer with less support, more time. So so it is a building block, and at that point, it doesn't matter what age they are between that 3 months to 6 months to 3 years. They all come in at level 1. And of course, I don't know if those who were at the Step Into Congress yesterday, the bonding, Stephen, our MC, was really talking about his special bond that he has with his grandfather, and it's related, he believes very strongly, it was related to his grandfather as one who taught him to swim. And he took lessons starting at 6 months old, and he really, it's cool because he mentioned this morning that as an outsider, we think we know what the impacts are, and we feel that's what the impacts are, but it's very nice to hear somebody outside of the industry validate that what we think we know. That is like, he's got a special bond with his grandfather, and he fully believes it's related to that initial exposure to learning to swim. So then we have preschool aquatics, and that is for about 4 and 5 years of age, and it's very important that we say about, because these numbers are not hard and fast. A child in the preschool may need a little bit more time with the parent in the water with them, that they're not socially ready or whatever the reason might be. But you also might have a 3-year-old that's primed for this program. Somebody that's around the water a lot, has been in the water since they were very young, has a backyard swimming pool, and they've had good exposure. Older siblings who are bringing them along. So again, it's about 4 and 5 years old. There are 3 levels of the preschool Learn to Swim program, the preschool aquatics program. And the big difference about this and our Learn to Swim, it's actually levels 1 and 2 of Learn to Swim are broken down into 3 levels for preschool. And the reason for that, again, similar to the parent and child, that it's building blocks. Obviously, they're due, further, longer, more times. But at that younger age, we want to give them some successes sooner because, they're obviously they're smaller, less developed. So we want to be able to give them some rewards sooner throughout that process. So the 2 levels of Learn to Swim are the 3 levels of Preschool Aquatics. And when they come out of Preschool Aquatics and they're able to jump into a different level of Learn to Swim, they don't have to start at the very beginning. So the big deal here is that we're teaching developmentally appropriate skills, and it's really the fundamental stuff, being able to, obviously kick, arms, but also starting to learn about breath control and such. And then a huge part of what we do is water safety education is integrated completely throughout our program. In the past, in our lessons, we always said, do water safety. Well, now water safety is actually a part of the checkoff skills that they have to learn as well. And then we move into levels 1 through 6. And this begins at about 6 years of age. And then at the end, and this goes all the way through adult. You can customize this completely so that you can make it work for teenagers, adults, but it does start at that 6 years of age. So obviously we're expecting that the children are going to be independent of their parents and can come in and behave well in the social environment, etc.
And as Connie said, it's not just for children, it is for adults as well. We have a corporate partner that actually, a tragedy in their firm, they had a company outing, and I won't mention the firm, but it was up in the New York area. They had a company outing, and an adult male employee drowned. An adult, and there was no alcohol involved, etc. And he drowned. So the one of the senior folks at this corporation contacted the Red Cross and said, can you help us? Can you help us make this part of our benefits package? So this big company now, as part of their HR package for every employee, is that they and their immediate family members are entitled, it's a benefit, just like insurance, etc. They are entitled to learn to swim, whether it's a child, an adult, a grandparent, whomever it is, their immediate family. So we're working with them and making great strides with other corporations. So think of that as you go through your kind of environments. Does that make sense for folks But we can certainly set up programs for Learn to Swim from ages 6 months through adult. So I don't want to keep saying that it's just the children.
Right.
Children are very important, but a lot of times it starts with the adults that pass on the fear to their children, as we've heard in so many sessions. So if there are adults, we can help them as well. And we'll do it, hopefully, in an environment where they won't be embarrassed, because that's another thing that's so critical. A lot of adult learners don't want to go to a very public pool environment. They don't want to go to a Y or a community center unless it's closed only to their sessions. So we work with lots of organizations to make sure that we provide an environment for folks that want to learn so that they can learn. And hopefully we'll break the chain of drowning among minorities. And it's in all races and all creeds, it is. So Thank you.
So with our program, it is 6 levels, and then at level 6, there are specialty options. There's a core that runs through everything so that they have, certain distances and doing, flip turns and, building endurance. But then there are 3 options at the top level. I'm actually not going to be able to think of what they are right now. Personal safety, fundamentals of diving, and fitness swimmer. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, and again, all of our programs, all of our levels, we include personal safety skills as a very important element of the program. And then throughout the levels, they learn basic skills and then refine them and then add endurance to what they're learning. And again, water safety education is integrated throughout. And in our program materials, we do provide the lesson plans even for the water safety content. So it makes it easier. It makes it so the instructor doesn't have to guess about what they should be covering when we talk about that. Here is a 2-page spread as an example of one of our course outlines. And you will see that they are subdivided into, the rows, into these components at each level. So with every level we have water entry and exit. There are going to be skills related to breath control and submerging. Then we go to buoyancy on your front and back, changing direction and position, treading, and then swim on your front, back, and side, water safety, and then there's a skills assessment. And as you look at that, you realize that as you look at that definition of water competency, and these two things were done completely outside of one another, but those are the elements of water competency. You get in, you completely submerge. You be able to get yourself righted and figure out which way you got to go in order to get out, and then move to the side and get out. And so those are absolutely the building blocks of our program. And then for each, we have the exit assessment at the end. So it's kind of a putting it all together. It's one thing to be able to do these things one by one, and then it's a different thing to be able to put them all together. So that's essentially what each level looks like. Those are the components, and obviously they're building blocks within each of those components. We also do, as once you're a water safety instructor, you have the opportunity to do water safety outreach. So we really think that it is not just about teaching people to swim, but it's about teaching people to be safe around the water, have safe behaviors. And we think that the WSIs really are experts to be able to go out and talk to the public about this. We have different courses that can be offered based on what your when we have a certification course, it's usually because there's a job-related need to have that certification course. So we have these courses: Water Safety Today, Personal Water Safety, and General Water Safety. One course that's not listed up there is Basic Water Rescue. And those are all courses that might be used for, like Basic Water Rescue is a course that, like aquatic fitness instructors often are required to have that course, or ride operators at not a water park, but an amusement park where there's water. So, for example, the Jaws ride, to say that what happens if somebody falls off of that ride? What do I do? I'm not a lifeguard. The water's shallow. How do we handle that? So that course kind of identifies what the risks are around the water, how you can prevent injuries and accidents from happening around the water, having emergency action plans. But then it also teaches reaching and throwing skills and how to help somebody until more advanced help arrives. So it's all about helping without putting yourself in danger as well. Personal water safety actually came out as a result of the Navy came to us saying, help, we need to, when people come into the Navy, we want them to already be able to swim, not them coming to us, then we teach them to swim. But we're having a hard time getting them to sign up for, say, go find a level 4 class. Well, the 17-year-old, well, let's say 18-year-old, isn't wanting to go to the public pool and sign up for level 4 with his other 7-year-old best buddies. No, they want something different. So this course, Personal Water Safety, it takes them at the level that they are and actually improves on. So it's assuming that they have a basic level of swimming. They're not afraid of the water, so they've got a certain comfort, but they don't have the ability to meet the entrance requirements for the Navy. But in addition to that, there's also 5 hours worth of safety content that were items that were of particular concern to the Navy. Alcohol around the water. That's obviously the one that just jumps out the most, but there are 5 different topics that get covered as well, that get covered throughout to kind of help educate them about how to make good choices when you're around the water. And then, of course, it improves their swimming ability. But then we also have these presentations, and these are like 30-minute presentations that are like brown bag lunch things. People come to the Red Cross all the time saying, hey, I'm having this presentation. We want a speaker. What can is there something that you can come and talk to us about? And so that's actually where these things were born. And so those are the topics that a WSI can go out and talk about, whether these are all dry land things under the presentations. And then we also have, Longfellow's Whale Tales is it's a children's program, but it's a dry land. It's intended for K through 6. with different activities that go throughout based on what age they are, worksheets and such. That's very, very widely accepted, widely used in school districts, safety town programs, that kind of thing. And then we have an online course called Home Pool Essentials that we actually developed with the National Swimming Pool Foundation. It's Home Pool Essentials, Maintenance and Safety, and it's about 2 hours. Half of it is operations, half of it is safety. And that is something that we encourage the public to take. That doesn't require an instructor. So these are the kinds of supporting materials that we have. And, as we were here to be talking about, donor support and funding of programs, these are the kinds of things that could be used to, to have some visibility from the donor as well. So, for example, what we have here is a newsletter, and that happens to be for Level 3 Learn to Swim. There are newsletters that go home to parents during each set of lessons to say how they can help. When we do focus groups to say, why do you choose the swimming lessons that you do? How would you like to be involved? Are you satisfied with your swimming lessons or aren't you? What we hear from parents the most is they want to know how they can help their child to progress. So these newsletters came as a result of that kind of conversation. We know they want to talk to their instructor, but we also know as facility operators that we probably don't give the instructors enough time to talk to the parents, and sometimes the WSIs aren't really all that confident going out and talking to the parent, especially if the child may not be doing as well as they want them, as they would hope them to be. So these newsletters give a great way to say, okay, here's what your kid is learning in class. Here's what you can do to help. Here's some safety information for you as well. But also, and here's what comes next. Because we want them to continue to go through that continuum of Learn to Swim. Thinking about the definition of water competency, what happens a lot is parents get to about level 3, or children get to level 3, and then the parents drop off. They're like, hey, good enough. The kid's swimming across the width of the pool. We're good to go. Well, no, guess what? When you're going to the river, level 3 isn't good enough, guys. Mm-hmm. So we really want them to go further along. So these newsletters help tell the story to the parents about what they need to do.
We took a survey for those of you that are ITs, instructor trainers, or WSIs. Again, in August, we went out to several facilities and did a survey on what is the best thing that we could provide for you for Learn to Swim, for the facility packages for next swim season. Well, the feedback we got was overwhelmingly in support of educational material for the parents, so that the parents could instill and reiterate with the child what is going on, what you need to learn. To Connie's example, level 3 is not good enough if you're going to survive in other, water environments. That as we grow up and become independent, and swimming's a wonderful way to become independent, one of the factors, but you really need to know what to expect. Not to instill fear in people, but say, here's the confidence, and the confidence goes through a lot more than level 3. So we would like to try to help people to move past that.
So some other items that you see up here, these are our Rafi Learns to Swim and Waddles in the Deep, are intended for those very younger levels of the preschool aquatics and also the early levels of Learn to Swim. One thing to be clear, you don't have to go to preschool aquatics in order to start the Learn to Swim. Right. The deal is that if you did preschool aquatics, then you can jump further into the Learn to Swim program. If you did not come in, you probably need to start at level 1 and Learn to Swim. So these booklets are great because they, number one, tell the story. They have a story that kind of goes over what these characters are learning in their Learn to Swim program. So it gives the child insight as to what to expect. But it also has some information that is, it's a reward for the child, but it's also information for the parent, and it's achievement cards. So this is more of an adult version of the achievement card, but up here, this one is showing what are all the different skills that you are learning throughout the lessons, and then the instructor can check off what they've done, so it gives a parent a guide to say, oh, so this is what I can do to work with my child, and this is still what's to come. So helping to set the expectation as, is my child going to pass or not? What else do we need to work on in order to be able to get through the levels to be able to move to the next level? In addition, it has some games and activities that the parent can work with the child in the water to help them progress, and then safety tips as well. And then, and so the others are things that I'm sure this is the Whale Tales package, so they come with really colorful posters, and there's a DVD that goes along with it with cute little scenarios that, help make the child say, what if I, don't follow the rules. So these are just some of the kinds of supporting materials that we do have available, and these are opportunities for visibility on, if you have a major sponsor that would come into your program that they could co-brand. So let me just pause there for any questions about our Learn to Swim program. So now we're going to move into some of the impacts of donor funding, and just talk about some of the different programs. Again, as part of our invitation to be here was to talk about what can donor funding do? How much donor funding does it take to make an impact? And so just want to go over some examples of how it is working out in the field for us. And I actually don't have slide support for this, because with all of these, we don't go out and talk about the donor unless they want to be talked about. And we obviously also don't want to have the images of the children unless they've signed releases and that kind of thing. So let me just go through some of them and just give some examples of some of the funding levels that we have and how it works. Because it's not as simple as saying, okay, what would $10,000 get me? That's a very big, it depends. And I'll give you a couple of examples of how $10,000 is making a difference. In the state of New York, there is a funder, it's a corporate donor that said, I want to help the Red Cross offset the program in a large city. So the donation is directly to the Red Cross, and it actually covers our administrative costs to deliver the program. So if you were, our Learn to Swim package right now is, there's a $300 facility fee. It includes 150 student learning fees and some of the certificates that you saw, and then it's $1 per student thereafter. So their $10,000 is actually impacting about 10,000 kids, because now it allows that municipality to not worry about paying on a per person basis what the money that goes back to the Red Cross. So that one is so you feel the impact of $10,000. But we all know that that's not really the true cost of delivering that Learn to Swim program. So as another example of $10,000 is in South Carolina. It's a family foundation, and it's in the 4th year of this foundation, of the grant to this city. And it is a deal where they pay, again, it's $10,000. Their focus is on Learn to Swim and water safety education. And they reach about 5,000 kids a year with this. Of course, the majority of that is in the presentation of Whale Tales. So they go to the public schools in that county and teach the Whale Tales to every 2nd grader in the system. And that is a free program for us. So it's just the cost of somebody getting in their car and driving there. And then they will also bring in, so with Whale Tales they have a very big Kids Fest. And that is a program where during that 2-day Kids Fest, they're able to touch between 600 and 1,500 students in that day and do Whale Tales. And they've actually used some of that grant funding to buy a little inflatable boat. And they act in an inflatable pool. So the kids learn how to do throwing assists and reaching assists, and they really get them active and playing out some of the scenarios that they see in the video. But also as part of that is they actually do have a Learn to Swim program where they have partnered with, the Red Cross has partnered with the city, and the city actually delivers the Learn to Swim program, and they train WSIs and the lifeguards as part of that grant. And that's in its 4th year. And so one of the things that's very cool about this is that they have now, with those kids that were coming to the 1st year of this program, are now starting to become water safety instructor aides. And we're building capacity in that community. so that now we have more lifeguards trained and we have more WSIs trained. And that is one of the biggest things that's important to us, is making certain that we have plenty of people to continue paying it forward. This year, how they've really been making it successful so far is that they have been working with the closest schools to the facility, and that closest school is able to walk the children over. But of course, there are many more elementary schools that need to be touched. And then we also have the homeschool children that participate in that, and so that's easy to bring them to. They connect it to a free program that the city offers each year, where they offer a week of free swimming lessons. So it goes from being able to have that week of lessons, and then now they come back with 2 weeks of making a difference with, really now making a difference, because now they're showing up for another 2 weeks of more intense training. So, and they're able to come back year after year. So now we're really seeing a difference in that population near that pool being able to swim and really enjoying the water all the time. This year they are, as part of that grant, the city has kicked in extra money to be able to bus all the children from the schools within the city limits to the pool for 2 weeks out of the year. So that's nice that they're really making, they're seeing the success of it and taking it a step further. Are we getting close on time?
We are, and the 10,000 example is one, and then we have one in Florida this year. Those of you that I think I've spoken with a bit, Broward County in Florida is one of the highest drowning rated counties in the country, sadly. And there's a private foundation, a family foundation, that gave $500,000 to the Red Cross to have us come down and make it safer in Broward County for these children. So you want to walk them through how that one works?
Sure. It's a $500,000 program that's a 3-year program. Each year they're trying to reach 800 to 1,000 children, and with the encouragement to keep them coming back, because they want to get them through at least level 3. So they're always welcoming them back. It's not about just hitting numbers. It's about making a difference and making certain that all the children who participate learn to swim. There's a parental education component to that as well, so that they all are walking out with water safety information, for one thing, and the invitation to come and participate in water safety training, like that Water Safety Today course, and of course encouragement to understand that you really also need to have those CPR skills as well. So it's that's much more of a direct delivered program by the Red Cross. That's actually not true. We've partnered with 17 cities in Broward County in the targeted areas where they have the highest drowning rates. And so making a difference the coordination is with 17 different authorized providers to make certain that we can provide that service directly. But again, the Red Cross doesn't own the swimming pools, so we really need the partnership. So the big takeaway for us with this is the partnership aspect, whether it's with the local school district, the Parks and Rec departments, Make a Splash Foundation that also helps bring in participants and excitement to it all. So it's a pretty, there's no doubt about it that the donors that are out there are really, really making some big, significant reach. So with the Broward County example, it's to get to 3,000 kids over that 3-year period, with it being repeated exposures to swimming lessons. So we're really excited about that one. I think we'll see some long-term impact there. And Dr. Gilchrist mentioned today that they were doing some reviews of an earlier program in Broward County that made the children haven't drowned as a result of their participation, but they haven't become swimmers. And we're hoping that perhaps we're going to be able to fill that gap with this group of kids, that we're really going to make them swimmers by the time they're done with it, and get the parents involved and get everybody to have a love of the water. So I guess that's as good a time as any to stop, right? And if anybody wants to come and chat with other opportunities, about what your money could do if you're interested in being a donor, please stop by our booth. We would love to have a conversation and share with you some other success stories that we have. Okay. So, any questions? Yeah, in South Carolina, that was the $10,000 family grant that they've had for 4 years in a row now. And crazy enough, the family doesn't even live in South Carolina anymore, but they're so pleased with the way that grant is going, that they continue to fund that and expand it.
What we're finding in some of the donors, whether it's private or corporate, is that some... Oh. What we're finding is that some of the corporate as well as private donors, whether they want to be publicly acknowledged with visibility items or privately, they just want children to learn to swim. We're finding that it's not necessarily the same town that the company is located in. It could be where one of the chief officers grew up, where they had an exposure, where their college roommate's grandson died because he couldn't swim. So it's usually connected. I get the chills whenever I say that, but it's usually connected to a story, whether it's an associate or a relative or a friend. And that is such an impactful moment when we find out from a corporate donor or a private family foundation or someone writing a check for $1,200 or $500 or $100. I want this to teach somebody to swim. And we make sure that happens. And it usually, like I said, it's from some personal exposure in some way, shape, or form. And we're all touched by drowning, and we'd like to all be touched by preventing it. So thank you again. Other questions? I know they're trying to keep us on a schedule.
What does the American Red Cross think is the number one contributor or something that we as instructors or operators can do to help prevent drowning? Just one thing, if you have to say one thing, this would make a change. What would it be?
Educate the parents
I
as
would
well.
say educate the parents. Yep, that's exactly what I would say. Dr. Gilchrist, would you? And
Yeah,
learn to
yeah,
swim.
yeah, yeah.
Basically, and as pool operators, that's exactly, where we need to do the facilities.
And the bad thing is from our situation of the ones employing the lifeguards, the parents become trying to over to us as babysitters.
That's right.
Right,
And that's truly not fair to us on our end.
right.
That's right.
It's educate the parents of how to pay attention to the kids and what to do, and to get the parents and the child started at an early age.
Yeah, the
Well-
first line of defense is the parent or guardian or whoever's supposed to be.
I don't mean to sound bad, but be a parent.
I agree with you.
Right.
Be a parent.
Well,
I agree.
one of the programs that I didn't get time to talk about was Louisiana. They're really making a big difference down there. And one of the things that I think is so special about their program is that whenever they offer swimming lessons for the kids, they are offering swim lessons for the parents,
Right.
as well as water exercise. Because they're like, okay, I'm willing to get in the water if I can touch the bottom the whole time. So now that I've got some confidence in that, they're seeing a spike in parents now signing up for swimming lessons because now they are feeling comfortable in the water. So I'm like, okay, I'll take the next step. So that's really cool to see that happening. So,
We had a rescue plane this year. It was big pool, maybe 120 by 50, so maybe 60 feet wide. Guards in the center of the pool, non-elevated stand, just right on the side. Lady comes in, brings her two kids and two little kitty bitties. Walks down a lounge chair, grabs a book. Puts it in her.
Right.
Little brother goes in before the guard could get over. Little sister went in to help. Now he's got
Two.
only two kids in the pool. Mother still doesn't know what's going on,
Yeah.
and he's got to come up with both of them.
Mhm.
Sets them up on the wall.
She didn't even know.
Watch your kids, and gets her attention and says, "Look, both of them. You almost lost both of them.
Yeah.
Pay attention." That's the hardest thing that we can
Right.
for us to get that message across.
Yeah. To your point, it's watch your children.
all right. I know they've got something else in the room right
Yep.
after this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.